Welcome to the NFL Show on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by MyBookie.eu. You can go to, or BetNow.eu. I just screwed up the sponsor. Luckily, I didn't put their name before the NFL Show. BetNow.eu offers you a 100% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $500 now through September the 16th. Use the promo code TRUTH100. You can also go to the GruelyTruth.com page, click on the banner at the top of the page, use the promo code TRUTH100. I am your co-host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome my co-host from the FF Faceoff, better known as the NFL Guru. Help me welcome Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
Mike, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Anytime we get to talk NFL, it's a great day. Just not if you're Antonio Brown. And it seems every one of our shows starts off with Antonio Brown. And right now, it seems Antonio's in trouble again with 3 charges of sexual assault, one including a rape on Brittany Taylor. What do you think here, Anthony? I mean, this is a mess again for Antonio Brown.
You know, if it's not like it's another round, I think he needs some time away from football. NFL shield in the mud, and he has been doing it really for the past year, going back to his time in Pittsburgh, getting into it with Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger, and now you have these allegations. Whether they're true or not, it is not a good look for the NFL. The NFL, they will investigate this, but I think they need to go further and possibly stick Antonio Brown on the NFI list, on the commissioner's exempt list, get him off the field, and let's see what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and a statement from the Patriots indicated that the NFL will be investigating the allegations of rape and sexual assault levied in a lawsuit filed against wide receiver Antonio Brown on Tuesday. Given the nature of the allegations, one of the questions that the league will face, I would think, is whether or not to place Brown on what you just said, the commissioner exempt list, while the investigation plays out. That means Brown would be paid while on that list, but he would be ineligible to participate in Patriots games or practices. I think this is about the only way the NFL can go with this.
And there was a press conference. I have a tweet from Adam Schefter from about 3 minutes ago that Bill Belichick said Antonio Brown will practice, but he is non-committal about whether he's going to play on Sunday or not.
Yeah, and I think he's got to be non-committal because we don't know what we're going to find out. This is Wednesday. Sunday's 4 days away, and it's hard to tell him what else could pop up in this case by then. I know there's already text messages that are damning, to say the least. They're also damning to Central Michigan University, the fact that Antonio Brown could have been declared eligible because he's not very good in grammar, Anthony. You there?
You're saying Antonio Brown isn't good at
grammar?
grammar?
Yeah, I mean, if you see the tweets, I mean, the N's and the U's, and I mean, the guy's a moron. And sometimes, if you're Bill Belichick, do you just wonder if this is worth it no matter how good he is?
I'm actually shocked that Bill Belichick even isn't moving on from Antonio Brown already. I understand taking a flyer on him after the Oakland Raiders thing didn't pan out. I understand that. But you're with the organization officially for, 24, 36 hours, and you're getting accused of rape? Get him out of here.
Yeah, but the other problem is this. Would there be a legal issue that he has just been accused? So maybe Bill Belichick is told by the NFL, you really can't just cut him because we don't know the whole story yet. And in this story...
But do you really need a reason to cut a player?
Actually, nowadays, maybe. I mean, it's not like it used to be where you could just cut somebody whenever you wanted. And if you... The other thing is this, though. What if he didn't do it? What if this woman's just trying to get money from him? And then you just cut him? So I think in the end, though, I think if this was the third string tight end, his ass would have been cut.
But don't you see how delicate of a situation? I mean, the fact that you have to walk on eggshells already with this guy, and he hasn't played a snap.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the problem. He's so good that people are willing to do that for him. And that is what's made him the man that he is today, I think, is the allowance of him to do whatever the hell he wants because he's better than everybody else at catching a freaking ball.
And that goes to Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's where that problem began.
No, I would think that problem probably began in Pee Wee football with Antonio Brown. And I think that nobody ever through high school or through Central Michigan or with the Pittsburgh Steelers ever told him, we are not going to allow you to act this way.
He wasn't an early draft pick. It doesn't seem like he has that pedigree where he was handed everything and spoiled at a young age.
A sixth-round draft pick at Central Michigan was probably a stud at Central Michigan. You know, because he was a sixth-round pick, and my take on Antonio Brown is he was at a small school where they probably still allowed this. I mean, it happens all the time. And I'm assuming he was probably one of the better players in high school also. So that's why my take is nobody's ever really reined him in. But, yeah, Mike Tomlin's not the guy to rein people in either because what we saw with him was he won a Super Bowl with Cowers guys, which could self-police themselves. But every year since then, everything's gone downhill in Pittsburgh.
Well, ever since the Steelers lost Hines Ward and Troy Polamalu, that's really when their locker room started regressing. And what really did them in was Ryan Shazier.
Yeah, Ryan Shazier was a tough one too. But, yeah, when you look at the history of Antonio Brown, I mean, this guy was a stud athlete. He won all kind of all-state championships in 100-meter dash, 4x100-meter relay. How about this? He was recruited at Florida State, but his admission was denied over academic concerns. He attempted to attend Alcorn State. He ended up deciding to go to North Carolina Tech Prep, played in just 5 games. He was the quarterback, and in 5 games threw for 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns, ran for 500 yards and 13 touchdowns. So it seems to me that Western Michigan or West Virginia didn't want to deal with him because of the grades. And once West Virginia did not take him, he ended up at Central Michigan because of his grades. But when you look at the athletic ability that he had, I think he's always been allowed to do whatever the hell he wanted.
Do you think Antonio Brown ever plays it down for the Patriots?
Probably not. I mean, if you remember what we talked about yesterday, I didn't expect him to make it through the year anyways, because I think at some point he's going to start some crap, and Belichick will eventually get rid of him. I just think that's the way he is.
I mean, not for nothing, Patrick Chung is facing cocaine charges, and he's still on the field.
Cocaine charges, to me, are nowhere near a rape. I mean, to me, a man that rapes a woman should probably be castrated right then and put in jail for the rest of their lives.
But still, the fact that Patrick Chung is able to play football, meanwhile these charges are hanging over his head, so why not put it? I mean, it's not like Belichick is what do you call it? like a golden.
Yeah, he's not Father Flanagan.
Child, and a team out there that are all angels. They're not all angels.
No, they're not all angels because this is the thing. If you have a football team and you want to win, you can't have all angels. You don't win football games with angels. My question about Patrick Chung is this. What else has he done, though? Because with Antonio Brown, it seems to me the problem is the reoccurrence of issues all the time with him, if you know what I'm saying.
But this is the first one with New England.
Yeah, and it happened like 24 hours after they signed him. And
Yeah.
there was a whole week leading up to this crap. And Patrick Chung, I would think, gets a little bit of a pass with the Patriots, and the Patriots are probably more lenient with him because Patrick Chung has been a Patriot since 2009. I mean, he had the 1 year with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, in 2013. But Patrick Chung's a guy that has put 10 or 11 years into this organization, and I can see where Patrick Chung, maybe you kind of want to help him out if he's got an issue, where you're less likely to want to help out a guy that just got there. At least that's what my take would be on it.
No, I don't agree, and I don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
Patrick Chung has been a big part of their.
Yeah. So, whatever it is, it's a mess, and it is what it is. I hate when people say that, but it just is. I mean, you had to know that something like this was possible. Now, the thing to me, Anthony, is this. The Patriots had the best front office organization in football, people say, and I think it's mainly because of Belichick. Do you think that maybe this is a lack of doing due diligence? Because it seems like there were kind of rumors about this over the past week or two. And don't you think that if they thought there was something to this, they would have stayed away from him?
Yes and no. Because they're getting, Antonio Brown, who had $30 million in guarantees by the Oakland Raiders, and they're paying him $10 million in guarantees. Why not? It's really a no loss for the Patriots.
Yeah, I could see that also, but I still think that if you know something like this is coming, why would you want to bring it into a team? And like we talked off air, it's not like they're a team that has to have Antonio Brown to win it all. And you've already brought up repeatedly, I know you think Rob Gronkowski, which I don't think is out of the question, is going to at some point reappear also. So it's not like they have to have Antonio Brown.
And not for nothing, I mean, we're just, 8 months removed from...
All right, you there, Anthony?
Yeah, I was bringing up Bob Kraft and his
sexual
almost a year ago, 8 months ago.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Anthony, let's take a commercial break. I'm going to hang up on you and call you back because Skype's giving us a poor connection and you're breaking up a little bit. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to hang up on you. I'm going to call you back and see if we can get this connection issue fixed, all right?
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to you in a minute. Right now, let's check out a word from one of our sponsors.
Hello, boxing fans. I'm Michael Montero of Montero on Boxing. You may have read my work in Boxing Monthly Magazine, Ring Magazine, or their associated websites, maybe Undisputed Champion Network, maybe you've heard my segments on NBC Sports Radio, or any of the other platforms where I do work regularly. Wanted to invite you to check out my podcast, The Neutral Corner. We upload it every Monday. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and of course at thegruelingtruth.net. Every week we go over the news, the rumors, the latest fights being put together. We analyze everything, give you the business behind the business, and then we review all the action that took place in the ring during the prior week around the world. Not just the big popular fights, but all the fights, including the little guys. And then, of course, we preview the action coming up this week. Again, Michael Montero, The Neutral Corner, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and thegruelingtruth.net.
Okay, you there?
Yeah. All right, we are back on the NFL show. I'm Mike Goodpaster with Anthony Cervino. It sounds much better now, Anthony. So
okay,
go
good.
ahead and continue if you can remember what your final thought was.
No, my final thought was when you're bringing up the morale of bringing in, if the Patriots did their due diligence, because there were rumors of this coming out, and I brought up Bob Kraft and what he did with his own, months ago. It's not like there's a big morale issue coming from the ownership.
No, there's no morality in New England because there's no morality in the NFL to begin with because every team would have taken a shot at this probably. We know Andy Reid would have been all over it because he loves guys like this. And Bob Kraft's a scumbag. And when you look at it, though, my old take was this. If you're a manager at Lowe's and you get 54 people that work for you, at least 10 of them are probably people you can't stand that do things that they shouldn't do. So I'm not really going to hold this against them. What I'm going to hold against them is if they don't go about this the right way. And I think the NFL is going to make this easier for them by putting him on the exempt list anyways.
And I think that would be the best move for the NFL as a whole, take New England out of it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to take New England out of it. I mean, because no matter what anybody thinks, everybody says the Cowboys is America's team. America's team right now is the New England Patriots. They get the biggest ratings out of anybody because unlike, it's kind of like the Cowboys. The Cowboys are popular, so are the Steelers because half the people love them, half the people hate them. With the Patriots, it's the same thing. So they're good for business. So you don't want to make them look any worse than what they can already make themselves look, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does.
So let's go ahead and move away from Antonio Brown because, until we know more, there's really no way to make a determination or talk a whole lot about it. But let's talk about a team that the Dallas Cowboys will play this week. And a year after suffering a severe left knee injury, Darius Geis is now having trouble with his right. The second-year Washington Redskin running back underwent an MRI on his right knee Monday morning and is expected to miss some time. What's your take on Geis? Because I think this is a guy we all think could be a stud, but we always use it just like we do with Carson Wentz. Can he stay healthy?
Yeah, and at least Carson Wentz, can play games in chunks. Darius Geis, he got hurt last year in the preseason. He's there a couple of quarters in his NFL debut. I feel like Darius Geis is going down that road that Donta Foreman, a former running back from the Texans, had a lot of upside, looked really good in the offseason, but can never stay healthy. And that could be the fate of Darius Geis. You can even bring Jake Butt, the tight end from the Denver Broncos, who, keeps tearing his knees up. Yeah,
so when you look at this coming up for this weekend, what kind of effect does this have? It looks like Adrian Peterson will probably be the main ball carrier. And they've got Chris Thompson. They had a new addition of Wendell Smallwood. So it's not like they're bereft of talent in the backfield. How does this affect the Redskins, or does it affect them at all?
It all depends on how Adrian Peterson comes out, because we do know Darius Geis is a pretty good football player. We know Adrian Peterson rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. In the first game against Dallas last season, Adrian Peterson had a pretty big game, over 100 yards rushing.
Yeah. So
it's all.
Go ahead.
Adrian Peterson.
Yeah. So and
I was going to say this is all on Adrian Peterson.
Yeah. Because the other two running backs aren't going to beat the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think Peterson does either, but he gives them a chance to stay in the game. There is some good news for the Cleveland Browns' struggling offensive line. Starting left tackle Greg Robinson is facing a potential fine, but not a suspension for kicking Titans safety Kenny Vaccaro. Robinson was ejected late in the second quarter to 43-13 loss. Let me ask you this. Freddie Kitchens says he does not tolerate that. If Freddie Kitchens does not tolerate that, shouldn't Freddie Kitchens suspend him for a game?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things Freddie Kitchens should be doing with his team.
Yeah, and I think
But for him to say he doesn't tolerate that, meanwhile, he's letting his high-profile wide receiver do whatever the hell he wants to do with a $250,000 watch.
No, it's $350,000. And so my thing is maybe you tell – this is just – from a coaching perspective, if I'm the coach of the Cleveland Browns, maybe I tell Beckham Jr. to take the watch off, and maybe I just tell Greg Robinson that maybe he doesn't need to play this week. In the long run, I think that's what would be best for this organization. You there? Oh, we lost Anthony again. It says we got a poor network connection. Thank you, Skype. We'll try to get Anthony back on here in a second. There you go. You there, Anthony?
I'm still here.
Yeah, Skype's having some issues today. So, yeah, my question was this. Should Robinson be suspended? Should they tell Beckham to take the ring off or the watch off? Or what would you do here if you were Freddie Kitchens?
If I was Freddie Kitchens, I would take control of my team, get Greg Robinson out, and win a football game.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I don't know if Freddie Kitchens knows how to do that.
I don't think he does. And if you look at this, backup Kendall Lamb suffered a knee injury and did not return. They're already short on the offensive line, and I guarantee you in Cleveland, Freddie Kitchens is catching a lot of heat. I guess if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchens, right, Anthony? Bad play on words. But I just think this has disaster written all over it, and this could get really bad if they go into New York and lay another egg.
How big of a mistake was it for the Browns to trade away Zeitler?
It was huge, and I caught all kind of hell from people when on Survive in Advance, the show me and Steve Risley did, where I said that I thought it was a horrible trade because it's a lot harder to get a top 5 guard than it is to get a top 5 wide receiver, and you already had Jarvis Landry.
Well, Zeitler was part of the Olivier Vernon deal, not the Beckham deal.
Oh, was he? I know he went to the Giants, though. He should not have been traded.
Which to me, it's even worse because what has Olivier Vernon? What has he done? He had
Nothing.
1 year with the Miami Dolphins with double-digit sacks.
Yeah.
And that's because he was a complimentary pass rusher to Cameron Wake at the time.
Yeah. It reminds me of the Bengals with Michael Johnson, who for some reason in 2013 had like 10 or 11 sacks. It was because of Geno Atkins that he had 10 or 11 sacks. The next year, the Buccaneers give him all this money, and he's back with the Bengals within a year, and he never did anything again. So these guys live off of one great year.
Yeah, and I think that the Browns are now paying for it because Baker Mayfield took a beating on Sunday.
Well, and I think it goes back to the front office organization where you are putting a bunch of glitter on shit, basically. You need to take, then the offensive line is the shit here. You got to fix the offensive line. If you got Baker Mayfield, you got to fix the O-line. If you draft a quarterback that high, you have got to have a plan in place. It's like Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck's out of the NFL early because Jim Irsay didn't get the offensive line help that they needed until year 5 or 6. It was either through just ignoring it in the draft or making poor personnel decisions. So if you're going to have a big-time quarterback, you better have at least an average offensive line to protect him.
While we're still on the Browns, how much is a lack of leadership going to affect them? Because I get they want to think Baker Mayfield is a leader, but he's still young. He's immature. You have your head coach who's very immature. You have an immature wide receiver. Where's the maturity? And who the hell is the leader on the Cleveland Browns who's going to pull this team together?
Well, my take on that is this. If you watch a football team, whether they're soft or whether they're undisciplined, it comes from the head coach. The team will take on the personality of the head coach. And right now, that's what they've done. Last year at the end of the season, they took on the personality of the head coach, which was Greg Williams, which was a hard-nosed dude that didn't play any games, and they went out and they played. They may not have liked him, but they respected him and they played for him. The problem with Freddie Kitchens is all these guys, including Baker Mayfield, wanted him to be the head coach. The front office in Cleveland acquiesced to what they wanted, and the next thing you know, you've got it. You've got Baker Mayfield's friend, Odell Beckham's friend, a guy that's trying to make everybody happy, a guy that's kissing everybody's ass, trying to keep his job. And in the end, this is going to turn out bad in Cleveland, and it wouldn't surprise me if Freddie Kitchens is out after this year.
I mean, if the Browns continue the way they're going, I don't see how they don't fire Freddie Kitchens by the end of the year.
I think you could fire him by week 6 or 7 if this team's sitting at 1-5, because this is going to be a complete cluster by the time he's done with it. I mean, he was a guy that was not capable of doing the job from the time they hired him. I mean, and we see guys hired like that. Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think is qualified to be the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Steve Wilkes wasn't last year. But all these guys make these stupid hires, especially nowadays for the young guys. You know, you got to have a young guy that at some point took a car ride with Sean McVay or something, and it gets old. And I think we've lost Anthony again. I would like to thank Skype for all the great connections they've done today for Anthony and myself. But we're going to go ahead and move on and hope that Anthony can get back on here in a second, which we're working on right now. Next, I want to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Nick Foles' first season with the Jaguars might not be over, but he'll be gone until at least November at the earliest. And Jacksonville is placing its prized off-season addition on injured reserve with a likely designation to return. NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported the team confirmed all this later yesterday. Foles underwent surgery Monday to repair a broken left collarbone, which he suffered in the first quarter of Sunday's loss to the Chiefs. Now, Gardner Minshew came in and played really well, and to back him up now, they have traded, I think, a sixth round, I forget which round, I think it was a fifth rounder, for Pittsburgh Steelers backup quarterback Josh Dobbs. Dobbs is a guy that has shown some promise in the preseason. He's from the University of Tennessee. Foles in his game. You there?
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. It's a Skype issue today, so I apologize to the listeners. I was just talking about Nick Foles and the Jaguars, how he won't be back till at least early November. They've got Gardner Minshew. Now they've traded for Josh Dobbs. What's your take on the quarterback situation with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Anthony?
I think losing Foles was a significant loss because what he brought to the locker room, because we saw how the Philadelphia Eagles rallied around Foles without Carson Wentz. And I think Foles was going to bring that team together. And as good as Minshew played, completed about 88 or 80% of his passes, I think he'll be okay. But I think what they're going to miss is Foles' leadership.
Well, I think this also. Gardner Minshew's not going to have another game like this because Gardner Minshew, there was no film on him in a regular season game. I think he's a rookie even, and he comes out, and now people are going to have a week to prepare for him, and he's going to have a week to think about, I'm the starting quarterback. It's not like all of a sudden you're not expecting to play. You're chilling out, you're charting the plays, and then the next thing you know, you go in and you play. You don't even get a chance to think about it. So I think we'll find out exactly what Gardner Minshew is at this point in his career this weekend, Anthony.
I agree to an extent, but how many times do we see a backup quarterback come in and get absolutely pummeled?
But how many times do we see a backup quarterback come in and start a game and be successful? Doesn't happen very often. I think that when you look at it, a perfect example is, you remember Jeff Blake against your Cowboys, 1997. They benched David Klingler. The backup, I can't remember who it was at the time, was injured. Then all of a sudden, Jeff Blake's coming off injured reserve, throwing 3 touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys, and he looked awesome. Now, in Jeff Blake's defense, Jeff Blake was a pretty good quarterback the rest of that year also. But I think it's a lot easier to come in a game where you don't know that you're going to be playing as opposed to do know. And I think the bigger thing here is now a team has film on him, and you can actually game plan for Gardner Minshew, which is different than game planning for Nick Foles.
Regardless, I mean, we are talking about a number 2 quarterback here.
Yeah.
And
he's a rookie.
I think the Jaguars are going to be okay. I think they'll be okay, at least until, when Foles can come off of IR. All they have to do is be, a game or 2 under 500. And then Foles can come in and work his magic.
Yeah, well, we've seen Foles work his magic in situations like that before, but you got to be able to keep your head above water. I think the game against the Texans will tell us a lot this weekend because it'll tell you whether Gardner Minshew's the guy or not. And I'm not even meaning winning the game, just how he plays. The New York Jets suffered a serious setback. Quincy Enunwa, who was out for the season, another serious neck injury. You got to wonder now if he's ever going to play again, Anthony.
Yeah, this isn't the first time Enunwa is going to miss extensive time with some kind of a spinal injury. And I guess it shows why they traded for Demaryius Thomas yesterday.
Yeah,
and some thought Demaryius Thomas doesn't have much left. He'll be cut within a couple weeks. Not anymore. I think Demaryius Thomas is going to have to make an impact.
Yeah, he's going to have to, because right now you're just rolling with Robbie Anderson and Jamison Crowder. They need him to come in and be able to do something big. And I think the even bigger thing when you look at this Tuesday night game or Monday night game that's coming up against Cleveland is linebacker C.J. Mosley and defensive lineman Quinnen Williams. They do have an extra day to prepare, but I know neither one of them practiced yesterday. And C.J. Mosley, that Jets defense looked like one of the best in the NFL until he got hurt midway through the third quarter.
Yeah, I think this Jets defense is going to be, this Jets team as a whole is going to be really good this year. They're going to be in a lot of games, but it was very disheartening to see them give that game away in the second half.
Yeah, it was disheartening for me, too, because I might have went on betnow.eu and had some money on them given the points.
I had the Jets, too.
Yeah, well, we're both idiots in that case. All right, who were the rookies? I'll give you like 3 or 4 rookies that really stood out to me this week in their first games. The guys that really stood out to me were Marquise Brown, T.J. Hawkinson, probably Terry McLaurin, which kind of surprised me a little bit, and A.J. Brown. What was your take on those guys' performances, and was there anybody else, rookie-wise, that really stood out to you?
Well, Marquise Brown, for one, he made the most of limited opportunities because he only played limited snaps. I think he only played 10 or 12 snaps, but just made big plays anytime he had the chance.
Yeah.
I want to see him do it again. I want to see Lamar Jackson do it again.
I want to see him do it against somebody that's not the Miami Dolphins.
Well, this week they're going to get the Cardinals, no Patrick Peterson, so they're going to have an opportunity to put on a show. What's interesting about this game is it has almost like a college feel with these quarterbacks, Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. This feels like a college game.
Well, you know, half of that Dolphins game last week felt like a college game. Yeah, and I think I don't know that the college stuff works in the NFL as much as people think it does, because it still seems to me that the teams that are the best teams are running pro stuff. And you can bring up the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Kansas City Chiefs, most of their stuff, if you watch their routes and the motions they use with Tyreek Hill, most of that can be traced, I think, to the Canadian Football League.
That interesting. I don't know much about that.
Yeah, if you watch a CFL game, and I think that I saw something one time where Andy Reid was a CFL fan, but in the CFL you can use forward motion with all your receivers if you want. Now, of course, the Chiefs can't do that, but the way they'll run Tyreek Hill or Sammy Watkins across the formation to get a read on the defense and then maybe bring him all the way back again is what they're doing is they're taking their wide receivers and they are making the defense adjust to what they want to attack, if you know what I mean. Instead of just lining up stationary or maybe just putting the motion straight across, the defense can then kind of dictate what the offense does. But I think the great thing about what you see with the Kansas City Chiefs and what you're starting to see with the Baltimore Ravens and the Cardinals is there's kind of a CFL mode there where they're kind of dictating to the defense what they want to do. And I think that's why you've seen so much success in Kansas City offensively over the last year or so.
Yeah, but I think it helps having a guy like Pat Mahomes as your quarterback over Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray right now.
Well, the question is this, though. If you ran a normal offense in the NFL, would Patrick Mahomes be as good? Because I don't think he would. I think he's a hell of a quarterback for the system he's in. My only question on him coming out of college was the fact that he had a tendency to have a hard time completing the deep ball. So the question now is he so accurate because he's got the fastest freaking wide receivers all over the place and he can't overthrow them?
Well, you know, Tyreek Hill is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with an injury.
Yeah.
So now you're left with Sammy Watkins, who balled out on Sunday. And I'm kind of intrigued to see their second or third round pick, McCole Hardman. I like McCole Hardman. You're talking about rookies. He didn't catch a pass last week, but he actually out-snapped Demarcus Robinson which tells me it's going to be McCole Hardman lining up on the other side of Sammy Watkins. And Hardman, it reminds me of Tyreek Hill, one of the fastest guys coming out of college this year. He's only played wide receiver for 2 years of his life, and his first year in the NFL is his third year playing receiver. So I'm very interested to see how McCole Hardman plays now that he's going to have to be a featured part of this offense.
Well, see, I don't think we're really going to know about the Ravens till week 6, because if you look at the schedule, they had the Dolphins, now they've got the Cardinals, they play the Chiefs, and the reason I say we don't know about them yet is this. The Chiefs' defense is not that good. The pass rush is not great, and to me, I want to see what happens to Lamar Jackson, where he's got to move around in a pocket and throw the ball. They play the Browns, they play the Steelers, but then they play the Bengals, the Seahawks, and the Patriots. And then the Bengals again over a 4-week span. And then they've got the Texans. So there's like 5 straight games there. Then they get the Rams. Then they get the 49ers. So then you got Bills, Jets. So they really play, after these first 4 or 5 games, their next 8 games are against teams that can get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm buying into the Baltimore Ravens a little bit. I don't know if Lamar Jackson's going to come out every week and complete 10 straight passes and 3 of them go for 60-yard bombs to Marquise Brown, but I think the Ravens are onto something. You bring up
Go ahead.
No, I was saying you brought up a couple other rookies. Let's go to A.J. Brown with the Titans. A.J. Brown, I feel like he kind of flew under the radar while these other receivers were getting hyped. And it looks like A.J. Brown is doing what Corey Davis never really did, and that was open up the offense.
Yeah, and that's something the Tennessee Titans have lacked forever. The other guy, which didn't surprise me at all, 131 yards and a TD, 7 catches, was T.J. Hawkinson. And I think that if the Detroit Lions had a better head coach, they could be a dangerous team this year. Because I'm not a fan of Matt Patricia.
No, you never were.
No, and I never will be. Because, number one, his last name is the name of a woman. And we went through this before. His name is Matt Patricia. That does not. Vince Lombardi, Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia. What doesn't fit?
Well, Patricia is my mother's first name, actually.
That's fine, but your mother's not an NFL head coach. And I bet she might be a better one than him, though. But he looks lost on the sideline to me.
You think?
Yeah, not as lost as Vic Fangio.
You said that about Vic Fangio.
Yeah, I think that the majority of coaches, and this is not every coach, of course, because Bill Belichick was a defensive coordinator. Vince Lombardi was he was the defensive guy, right? Landry was the offensive guy in the Giants.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're a great defensive coordinator, but for the bigger part to me, the guys that stand out as being the biggest failures as head coaches are guys that were defensive coordinators. I'll give you a perfect example. Buddy Ryan. Buddy Ryan was a really good defensive coordinator, possibly a great one, probably was a great one. But when he became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, he was a guy that was so used to just staying with one side of the ball, the other side of the ball gets neglected. And I think that Randall Cunningham had the ability to possibly be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in NFL history, and he was never developed properly. And I think you could see that as when he got older, he went to Minnesota. Yeah, he goes to Minnesota with Brian Billick, who was, even though he's an ass, he was a hell of an offensive coordinator. And he turned Randall Cunningham into a pocket passer who was good enough to be the NFL MVP in, 1998 or 99?
I think it was 98 when he had Chris Carter. Did he have Moss too?
Yeah, it was the year that they went 15-1 and then got upset by Atlanta in overtime, 30-27. But that Randall Cunningham, if he would have had that kind of guidance earlier in his career, Randall Cunningham was a tall, athletic guy. And, yeah, he could run, but if you had kept him in the pocket to throw the ball, I think he'd have been fine. And you saw Mike Shanahan fell in love with RG3's ability to run the ball. And RG3 was a guy who still ranks, I think, top 10 in NCAA passing. He was a pocket passer in college. He ran when he had to, but he could stand in a pocket and deliver the ball. And I think Mike Shanahan basically ruined the future of RG3 and the Washington Redskins by forcing him to play when he was hurt and having him run around in his own read stuff. Russell
they
Wilson,
had Kirk Cousins. It's not like they had Kirk Cousins, too, they drafted.
They drafted him back-to-back.
Yeah. They drafted him in the same draft.
Yeah, so you could have played Kirk Cousins in that playoff game. And the thing about that playoff game, even if they'd won that playoff game, they weren't going to win the Super Bowl with that team. You'd have got your one wild card win. You'd have got cracked up the next week. So basically he mortgaged everything. And I think it's sad every time I see RG3. It's just like Jeff Fisher with Vince Young. Vince Young went from a 10-6 quarterback that was the rookie of the year to not even in the NFL because Jeff Fisher is basically an ass who didn't know how to run a team with a quarterback. It's just like everybody tells me, well, Nick Foles was terrible in L.A. Yeah, everybody was terrible in L.A.
I mean, Jared Goff is a perfect example.
Yeah, Jared Goff was terrible, and then now he's slightly below average because he got better coaching. That and getting Todd Gurley didn't hurt either.
No, absolutely not.
So coaching's got a lot to do with why quarterbacks fail, and it's just like when we talk about Dak Prescott. I think that they finally have the offense that Dak Prescott is most comfortable in. And, you know, like we talked about before with the holdout, maybe that's why he held out. Or maybe that's why he's not signed a contract yet, because he thinks in this offense he's going to have a gigantic year and be worth even more money when the season's over. If I'm Jerry Jones, I'd pay him right now.
Yeah, I would have paid Dak.
Yeah.
I would have paid Dak before the season because Sunday is a sign of what's to come. He's going to have to pay Dak a lot.
Yeah, and it may not be a sign of things to come, but I think it is because there's enough history there that Dak Prescott is at the very worst an above-average NFL quarterback. And when you look at the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, how many of them are even above average, Anthony? Maybe
I would
half?
say half, maybe up to 20, if you're being generous.
Yeah. So if there's only 20 of them guys, you better pay them because you're not going to get somebody better than him probably because there's so much talent with the Cowboys. Even if disaster strikes, they're probably going to win 8 games, so then you're picking below the top 10 anyways. And your chances to get a guy like Dak, and I know Dak was a 4th-round draft pick, but I've always liked Dak. I think Dak's a stud. I mean, I can repost my 2016 article where I ranked him the number 1 quarterback in that quarterback class because I thought he was better than Wentz and I thought he was better than Jared Goff. And I think that over the next 3 years, he's going to prove that. And if Jerry Jones don't screw it up and Ezekiel Elliott can stay out of trouble, sometime in the next 3 or 4 years, Dak Prescott's going to win a Super Bowl. There. You happy now?
I'm very happy. I think if they can keep this all together, there's many Super Bowls in their future.
Yeah, it's these days though. It's really hard to keep it together for many Super Bowls. Now, if Dak Prescott is a singular talent like a Tom Brady in them, yeah, you could do that. I love Dak Prescott, but I think it's a stretch to say he's that kind of quarterback yet. But he's the kind of quarterback that I don't think goes through his career without winning 1 or 2 Super Bowls.
I don't know if you can't put Dak, you can't put anybody really in the same conversation as Tom Brady. No. But the fact that
Joe Montana, that's
the way that Dak, came into the NFL, he was Romo's backup, and all of a sudden Romo went down in the preseason, and Dak was the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys with a ton of pressure. And he's really improved ever since. He just keeps getting better, winning division titles. And my co-host on the FF Face-Off hates when I bring up intangibles, but Dak has intangibles, and I think you need intangibles to be a successful quarterback in the NFL.
If you read the article I wrote a few years ago, that was the thing that put him over Wentz to me and put him over Goff. Now, I think Wentz has the ability to be better than Prescott. But right now, if you made me pick one of them for just this year, I would go Dak Prescott. If you gave it to me for their career, if he's going to be healthy, Carson Wentz, but we don't know if he's going to be healthy. So when I look at it, I think Dak Prescott's a stud. I think Kellen Moore was the right hire, and I think, how about this? I think 3 years from now, Dak's winning the Cowboys the Super Bowl, and the head coach could be Kellen Moore by then.
You think Garrett gets one?
No. I think Garrett's why I think you guys have no chance. Because, let's face it, if you're going to play in the Super Bowl, you're probably playing Bill Belichick. I cannot imagine Jason Garrett having the balls to not play, not to lose against Bill Belichick. And that's why I like the Eagles more than the Cowboys, because the Eagles tend to, with Doug Peterson, always play to win the game. Where I think with Jason Garrett a lot of times, you know, as my mom used to say back in the day, he gets a puckery asshole when things get tight.
Yeah, but Jason Garrett's not calling the plays.
Yeah, but Jason Garrett is going to make the decision whether to go for it on fourth down. And the other thing about it is this. There's headsets for a reason. When I was a head coach, my offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator knew that at any time, if I didn't like something was called, I would tell them no and change it myself. And I guarantee you that's what happens in New England, and I guarantee you that's what happens in Philly. It may not be what happens in Dallas, but the coordinator also has to get the game plan approved by the head coach. So it's not like Kellen Moore has carte blanche to do whatever the hell he wants, if you know what I mean. And if he does, he's definitely going to eventually be the head coach over Jason Garrett anyway.
No, I don't know if Kellen Moore can do what he wants yet, but a couple of more good games like he did against the Giants, I think he'll have a little bit more control.
Yeah, you'll have more control, but the head coach still has the final say. That's why no matter what happens with a football team, it all falls on the head coach, because you got a headset on, you know what play's coming. So if it's 4th and 1 and you're at midfield and you decide to take a shot 50 yards down the field and it doesn't work, you can blame the offensive coordinator all you want, but you knew that play was being called and you allowed it to go in, which means you were for it. At least that's the way I take it. You know, my team played in a championship. Last professional game I coached, indoor football, we played in a conference championship game in Marion, Ohio, and my offensive coordinator sucked. And I allowed him to continue to call the plays without taking them away from him. So I don't blame him for that loss. I blame me because I never should have allowed that to happen. But that's all I got to say about that. That's Antonio Brown calling me right now, too.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, he knows I'm good with, getting people off of cases like this. So I watch Matlock a lot.
They still run Matlock at late night.
Yeah, I've never ever watched Matlock either, but I know Andy Griffith was in it, so it had to be a pretty good show. But you got anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up today?
No, I think we covered pretty much all the top news of the day.
Yeah, and tomorrow we will do the same thing at noon. We will do the same thing every day, Monday through Friday at noon on the NFL show on the Grilling Truth Sports Network. Make sure you check out betnow.eu. Use the promo code TRUTH100 to get a 100% cashback bonus on your first deposit. You can hear us. You can hear me all night tonight at 7 o'clock. Joe Kelly will be here, former Cincinnati Bengal, to talk a little Cincinnati Bengals versus San Francisco 49ers with myself, Ty Robbins, and Matt Minnick, who was formerly a coach at South Dakota State University, writes for the Cincinnati Jungle now at 8 o'clock tonight. Me and Cole Hanna will be on with an Indiana-Ohio State football preview on the Indiana Football Weekly Show. 9 o'clock, CFL legend Robert Drummond will be with me and Brian Schmidt to talk about last week in the CFL and to predict all the games coming up this week. And at 9:30, me and Brian Schmidt will be back on air because my wife works today. I don't have football practice, and I got nothing else to do. So I just talk to people all day and just record it. So tonight, the College Football Weekly Pick'em Show with me and Brian Schmidt at 9:30, approximately 9:30, right after the CFL show. You can follow Anthony Cervino where, Anthony?
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru, and you can follow my show at The FF Face Off, and you can find it on YouTube and anywhere else you can get a podcast.
All right. So that's it, guys. Remember, You can hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find podcast, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.